What's up, guys? I'm out here at Fort DeSoto Park once again. It is a glorious mid-January day, and guess what? I haven't smoked a cigarette in 5 frickin' years. Yeah. That's right, it's been 5 years since I've smoked a cigarette. What an amazing life I have had since then. I cannot believe it. It is so exciting to not be a smoker. I can't even imagine what my life would be like right now if I were a smoker. It would be completely different and absolutely in a worse way. So I want to tell you a story, a true story of something that happened to me a month ago in real time, and I just wanted to share this experience with you all. But I want to rewind a little bit and go back to the year 2011. In the year 2011, I had a cat. Actually, I had 2 cats, but the oldest cat that I had at the time, named Buddha, was 12 years old. She was my best friend. She was there when nobody else was. She comforted me through all the dark times in my life, and she was truly my best friend. One day, I got up for work, and I took a shower, and I got ready, and I went out into the living room, and I adjusted the blinds, and I opened up the blinds so it's not dark in the living room the whole day, and I turned to the side, and Buddha, my cat, she was on the couch facing the other way. And so I opened up the shades, and I noticed her sitting there and not moving, and I went, Buddha. And then I went again, Buddha. And I ran over to her as fast as I could, and I touched her, and she was as stiff as a brick. She had died. And she had been dead for so long that she had rigor mortis throughout her, and she was rock hard. Which means that she must have died as soon as I went to bed, because I was asleep for 8 hours, and rigor mortis takes some time to go through your body when you die. Anyways, so I immediately went into shock when I touched her and felt how hard she was, and when I realized that she was dead, I immediately went into shock and freaked out. I immediately started crying, and the first thought that came to my head was smoking. Now, at this exact time in 2011, it was 10 years ago, but I believe that I was at the 2-week mark of not smoking. It had been 2 weeks at that moment that I hadn't smoked, and then she died, and the first thing that came to my mind was, I need to smoke right now. Like, give me a cigarette right now. Nothing else mattered. Work didn't matter, calling my family didn't matter, calling my friends didn't matter, calling my job didn't matter. The only thing that mattered at that moment in time was, I need a cigarette right now. And I literally ran across the street to a convenience store that was right there. The first thing I did was I bought a pack of cigarettes, just instantaneously. Didn't even think twice about it. That was what I did right away. It didn't matter that I was at the 2-week mark, or day 1, or day 2, or day 3. I was so shocked and completely just devastated that I just had to have a cigarette. That was the first thing that came to my mind, and that's crazy. Of course, I regretted it right after I started smoking, because I immediately went back to being a chain smoker and smoking at least a pack of cigarettes a day. Of course, I regretted it. You know, I turned something like a death, something horrible, into something even more horrible by reintroducing the addiction inside my body. But you know, as I wrapped Buddha up in a blanket and took her to the veterinary hospital, I promised her, even though she was a dead body wrapped up in this blanket, I promised her that I would quit smoking for her. It wasn't instantaneous. In fact, it took another 4 years for me to fully quit, but I did. I did keep that promise to her, and that feels really, really good. But yeah, that was awful. That was one of the worst moments in my life, and I cried for like a month. I mean, it really devastated me. It was like losing a best friend, and in hindsight, looking back, I just made it even more worse by starting smoking again. But let's fast forward to now in 2021. About a month ago, 2 weeks into December 2020, my other cat that I had when I had Buddha, Mitch is his name, and I got him as a baby when Buddha was around, and it's been 13 years since then, and Mitch died in mid-December of last year. And it wasn't a death like Buddha's, where I woke up and she was just dead on the couch with rigor mortis. Mitch died a horrible, painful death on my kitchen floor with a seizure that lasted over an hour. It was absolutely heart-wrenching to watch. He had been having seizures for a few months, 5-minute seizures, but he would come out of them and snap out of them in a minute or two. This last one lasted over an hour, and it was just heart-wrenching to watch someone go through that much pain. I'm not sure if he felt any pain. I have read that if you're having a seizure, you are blacked out and you don't feel it. So hopefully that's true, because by my perspective, it looked like he was going through absolute torture. And he was on my kitchen floor just screaming in pain and crying. And I was on the kitchen floor as well, just crying and talking to him and allowing him to die. I mean, it was just an awful situation. And I don't wish it upon anybody. I mean, it lasted for so long, and he's screaming and I'm crying, and I just want him to let go, because it's okay. It's okay to die. It's okay. And he finally did. He finally did after an hour. Actually, I got to a point where I had to make a decision on whether I was going to just let him die on the kitchen floor, or if I would take him into his carrier despite his crying and screaming and take him to an emergency hospital and put him down. That was the decision that I was forced to make. I couldn't just watch him just suffer anymore on the kitchen floor. I had to make a decision. I picked him up and I put him into the cat carrier, and I got the courage to get into the truck and to GPS the way to the emergency clinic, and I drove him there. And on the way to the clinic, I had noticed that he stopped crying. He wasn't making any noises, and it was dark. It was like 3 in the morning when this was going on. And by the time that I got to the emergency animal hospital, I stopped the car and I looked at him, and he had passed away. And I immediately just started crying right then and there. I was crying the whole time, but then I just kind of lost it right there. And I called my neighbor, who is also my coworker and a good friend of mine. I called her and I woke her up because it was 3:30 in the morning, because I didn't know what to do, because I was at the animal hospital, but he was dead. And so I didn't think that I had to actually go in there and spend a bunch of money when he was already dead. It's not like they had to put him down and inject him with something. He was already dead right next to me. And so she consoled me and told me that I didn't have to go in there. And so I just started the car back up and I went home with him. I buried him in the backyard because that's where he liked to play. So I wanted him to be close to me, as the days went on. And so I feel really good about that. So now every time that I look out the back window, I can see exactly where he is, and I find some comfort that he's there with me. But you know what? This entire time, that was happening, with him dying on my kitchen floor, me being devastated, going into shock, crying and convulsing with him on the floor, making those hard decisions about putting him down, that entire time, I did not think of smoking a cigarette even once. Not even once. Didn't even cross my mind. And that, my friends, is the difference between being a non-smoker in 2021 and being on day 14 in 2011. I was able to handle all those emotions, those extreme highs and those extreme lows, all by myself, without any help, without any crutch. I was able to do all of that without ever thinking about smoking a cigarette. And that's because it's been 5 years. It hasn't been 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks. It's been 5 years since I've smoked a cigarette. So that is proof right there that the further you go without smoking, the less you think about it. This experience for me is absolute proof that you can make it through life, through the extreme highs and the extreme lows of all your emotions and your hormones and whatever, and you can make it every day without even ever smoking a cigarette, thinking about smoking a cigarette, or any of that nonsense. I am living proof of that. Back in 2011, when I was going through relapse after relapse, day 1, day 2, day 3, make it 2 weeks, relapse, day 1, day 2, relapse, relapse, day 1, day 2, day 3, relapse, just over and over, that constant up and down cycle. Yeah, smoking is at the forefront of your mind because you haven't made it enough time to stop thinking about it. So if you want to get to a point where I am, where you can handle all your emotions and anything that life throws at you, then quit smoking cigarettes. You will eventually get to a point where I am, where you absolutely do not think about it even once. In fact, the only time that I do think about it is when I'm making these videos. And it's really hard now because it's been so long since I've smoked a cigarette that I can't really think of any more topics to cover because I feel like I've covered everything. But this last December when my cat died was a true real life experience that I went through, and I just wanted to share share with you at all, because it really meant a lot to me, and it's a true living proof of what being a non-smoker is like. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it sheds some light and gives you a little bit of inspiration to just quit that nasty habit and get to a point where I am, where you don't think about it whatsoever. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of 2021, and I will see you all next time.